What does the hare and the devil have in common? Hi. In this video, I want to talk about a very important topic. I believe it can benefit a lot of us, and some of us might actually be falling for that without even realizing it. Now, also in this video, I will be using Islamic references, but I still believe there is something in it for everybody. Now, going back to that, we all know the story of the hare and the tortoise, how the tortoise kept going and going and going because it knew its limitations, and the hare kept stopping on the way because it knew it can win and it was faster. So it stopped on the way, took selfies, posted on Instagram. You all know the story. But what about the devil? Well, the devil disobeyed God. But why? The same reason the hare kept stopping on the way. They thought they were better. Now, in our daily lives, sometimes when someone says or does something bad, they say, oh, well, it's because of the devil. The devil made me do it, and so on and so on. But who or what made the devil actually commit the very first sin in existence ever? The answer for that and for the hare are the same: ego. Now, ego in Arabic, or the equivalent in Arabic, is a word called kebr. Now, Arabic being a rich language, kebr has so many meanings. I will actually try to include some in the video. Now, the meaning of kebr in Arabic is roughly translated as belittling people and denying the truth. And if you think about it, it is quite true. If you tell someone, for example, that they made a mistake, they can get defensive and they're denying the truth. And on the other hand, you find people who mistreat others. They're belittling them. And we'll go into that later on. Now, if you're wondering why I'm sitting on the floor for this one, probably near the end you'll figure out why. And if you stick around to the end, I will include some ways to combat ego and how to treat it for yourself or for others as well. Now, in Arabic, it is said that kibr is denying the truth and belittling people. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said that the person who would have equivalent of dharra. Now, dharra is an Arabic word. It was used at the time for a grain of sand or something really small, or a small ant. So the hadith says that basically a person who has as little as a grain of sand or small size of a small ant of kibr in his heart will not go to heaven. And this is quite a statement. Now, we can split kibr to three main parts. First one is kibr with God, arrogance, or using the ego with God. Now, the second one is with the prophets. Now, the third one is with people, daily life. Now, the first one, you see it from people who don't believe in God, and surprisingly, you see it with people who actually believe in God. Those who don't believe, of course, deny the existence of God. They just think they were created out of nothing, or an accident in the universe. Well, how did the universe come to be? Well, the Big Bang. Well, how did the Big Bang come to be to begin with? And I've actually spoken to people who would tell me, well, I don't believe in God, but if I did believe in God, well, he's so and so and so and so. Horrible things I don't care to repeat. Now, with the people who actually believe in God, surprisingly, you sometimes stumble upon someone who says like, well, I believe God should have done so and so. Why didn't God do this and that? Why does God do this and that? And they forget that they are a creation of God. They were created on earth, and they don't necessarily understand everything. They barely understand everything on the planet, so let alone everything God created, or God's wisdom behind certain things. And I believe with those, they really need to go back and remember that they are servants of God. They are God's creation. Now, for the second type, the arrogance or the ego with prophets. And you see this, or you hear about this in the books, in the Quran, in the Bible. And for example, the Pharaoh told Moses, I am God. And those rivers run beneath me, and I own the land, and so on. Well, Pharaoh, of course, knew he was a human being. He knew he was born, and knew he was weak, and he ate, and he had to mate and eat and poop. But he still was arrogant enough to claim divinity. And you see this as well, for example, with the story of Ibrahim, peace and blessings be upon him, and the king who said, well, what does God do? And when Prophet Ibrahim said, God can create life, can take life. And the man said, I can do the same. Now he killed someone and pardoned someone. Now, when the Prophet Ibrahim told him, well, okay, well, God raises the sun from the east, bring it from the west, you bring it from the west. Now, of course, the guy couldn't do that, and that was that. And there are a lot of examples for that. Now, there's another part of it in our modern times when people, when they go and claim or say something bad about a different prophet, or claim that this prophet wasn't a good prophet, or this prophet doesn't exist to begin with, or that he is not a prophet to begin with. And for example, another one is you see this with people who do caricatures or make fun of Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, or Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, or Moses, or any of the other prophets. And those people might believe in God and might believe in the prophets, but they're still using the prophets for humor. Now, basically, when someone does that, when someone makes fun of someone else, they, on some level, belittle that person or think they are better than that person. And come on. And the final one is probably the most common for a lot of people. And we might fall for it one point or another, and it's arrogance or ego applied with people on daily life, in daily life. And I would categorize this into two sections, passive and active. For the passive one, you see people who would pay a lot or go beyond their means to wear things, to seem richer, to seem cooler, to seem better. You see people paying for cell phones they can't afford, wearing clothes they can't afford, buying cars they can't afford. And it's the mentality of, well, I can't really have people not see me with something like that. Or that person has so and so and so, well, I have to have more than that, or at least same like him. And in this situation, mainly the person is really harming themselves, or perhaps their families. If a man, for example, is instead of feeding his kids or sending them good schools, he buys a better car. And the active one is, you see it when people mistreat others, when they belittle others. You see this in so many ways, in so many different forms. People who cut queues and just step in and they don't care about the people behind them. You find this the people who, for example, mistreat those who serve them one way or another. Let's say a waiter at a restaurant. Those people who might stop in the middle of the road and don't care about the people behind them. And there are so many examples. It's ridiculous. And I believe that al-kebr is truly something bad. Of course, from the hadith that the Prophet said, but even for those who don't believe, and while I won't go too much into this, it's something that tears the society apart. Because if you think about it, many tyrants, and I mean many tyrants, no need to list the names, they exterminated races, or attempted to do so anyway, and genocide and racism and prejudices. So many things happen because people are arrogant, because the ego is like the cancer of the heart. It destroys things, it makes people do actions they really shouldn't be doing, and they harm just fellow human beings. Some people that might even be better than them. And ironically, sometimes they mistreat people because they know deep down they are better than them. Because a person who is arrogant is truly aware, or probably, maybe not truly aware, but most likely behaves this way because he knows deep down there's something wrong with him, something missing, that he is less in a way or another. And sure, nobody's perfect, but this is not an excuse to behave this way. In fact, it makes things a lot worse. Now, I believe there are very, very simple ways to think about this. For the people who believe they might actually suffer from this, try and remember where you came from. You were basically just one sperm, one egg. You didn't exist until a few years ago, tens of years ago. And remember where you will end up. We will all die and we will all be judged for our deeds and actions. Now, the least a person can do, even if they don't believe they will in the second life, is leave a good legacy, treat people well. We are all here, we're living, we're suffering, we're struggling. We are all in the same boat one way or another. And just remember how truly weak we are. I mean, we get sick easily, we get tired easily. I mean, especially these days with the coronavirus, I mean, something we can't really see has put the world on a lockdown. And if you think about it, sometimes a person chokes on like one grain of rice, just one soft grain of rice, cooked grain of rice. It can actually kill someone. Small burst of blood in a blood vessel, it can actually paralyze someone. It can cause brain damage. We are so fragile, and we need to remember this when we deal with people, when we deal with God especially, and just remember how we are. And now, also, remember who created you, of course. And I said this before, remember who created you, and remember that you will be judged for those actions. And as for others, try, of course, a person who is arrogant kind of has sort of built-in defense mechanism for help, or to help, sorry. But still try, reach out, talk kindly and slowly to them, and tell them, for example, that the way they are treating you hurt you, or the way they treated someone else hurt them. And it's not a good way, and try to slowly make them change, help them change. Now, you might not be able to do so, but at least try. Remind them of the things I said before, where they started and they will end up, and where they will end up. Remind them that what truly can differentiate them from others is good character, good actions, good deeds, how they treat people, what good they actually do. It's not the money they have, it's not the cars they own, it's not the clothing, it's not how attractive their wife might be or how many children they have. And there is actually a story that I forgot to mention. It is mentioned in the Quran about the owner of this garden, and he was talking to a friend, and he had more children, and he was richer, and he actually told his friend that he does not believe that this land will ever perish, and that he will not be judged for his actions on Judgment Day. And if he did, he will actually get better than his land. Based on what? Now, with dealing with other people, try to remind them with the same things I said, and try to speak kindly to them, speak softly to them, and remind them that we're all in the same boat, and what they're doing is hurting others and harming others, and that the true way they can be better than someone else is by good deeds, good actions, good behavior, kindness, and so on. And worst case scenario, just keep your distance. If you find that they are resistant, if good guidance or advice actually drives them to go and be even more arrogant, then just avoid them as much as you can. Treat them with kindness if you can, but keep your distance. Now, I've spoken briefly about the topic, and this is a topic that can go on for hours and hours, but I hope that in this brief video I've shed some light on the topic of ego and arrogance, and I have helped people realize the dangers of the ego, and hopefully I will be seeing you in future videos. Thank you for watching.